to another session of Adobe Illustrator, another beginner lesson. Today we're going to talk about making cartoon characters. In the last lessons, we talked about making Felix the Cat and Mickey Mouse, and we did these by constructing them with shapes because there's a lot of shapes evident in their face. When you get to cartoon characters like Bart Simpson here, it's a little bit harder to start working with shapes and manipulating shapes, although it can be done, and it takes some time. These shapes would have to be manipulated, and there's a lot of compound shapes going on in here. And it takes a lot of time to do it this way. And I would actually probably prefer to really just kind of like trace this rather than try to construct this with shapes like we did on the other characters. Here I have a picture of Bart Simpson. And the way I would trace this is either to use the pen tool, which is a difficult tool to master, but if you've been practicing, you can use the pen tool to trace and outline all these shapes on here. And remember, if you do make a mistake with the pen tool, you can always go back in and redraw the line, or you can actually re do the line with the convert anchor point tool or white arrow or however you want to fix it. So there's a lot of different ways to fix your lines when you draw it. I wouldn't really want to use, I probably would use the pen tool here, but if you were a beginner, like most of you are, I would simply use the brush tool. So if you take the brush tool from the toolbox, and I want to have no fill on the brush tool, and just a stroke, and I go out my screen, the brush tool looks like a brush. The way to make the brush larger or smaller is by hitting the bracket keys on the keyboard. So next to the letter P, you have the bracket keys, and the right bracket will make it larger, and you can make a large stroke, and the left bracket will make it much smaller. So you can adjust your strokes as you go. And Bart basically has all the same stroke size here. I would also zoom in so that you can have some good aim when you're drawing this, because it's not that easy to trace the character. And if you get up with mistakes like this, I would undo and then go back in and try it again, okay? Because it really doesn't take that long to get this done. If you notice there's a lot of bouncing and a lot of the line isn't very smooth as you're going, there is a setting in here for smoothness. So when I double click on the brush tool, I can bounce this over another step closer to smooth and click OK. And what that will do is now if there's a little bit of jaggedness in the line, it'll fix some of the minor jaggedness but leave some of the major curves. Okay, so you should be able to get something like this, and it really smooths it out really nice. Okay, so you would go through and trace this. I don't think I need to show you how to trace things, so it's just a click and a drag to trace around with the brush tool. Okay, and like I said, if you got something wrong with that, you should clean it up and go back and fix it. For this part with the hair, you might want to leave it on change the fidelity setting a little further away from smooth, but actually it's working out pretty good. Okay, so you're going to trace the entire bar, every black line, and you're not going to fill it in. So you'll end up with something that looks like this. So it's a blank page of a coloring book. Okay, so here's a good Bart drawn. Please, if you don't trace and you try to draw, it ends up looking like that. That'd be a no. This is no good. No good. Unless you are trying to draw during an earthquake, and your house is falling apart. This is not acceptable. Okay, so try to do a nice job tracing. You have undo on your keyboard for a reason. So when you get done tracing it, the way to color this in is there's a couple steps to this. Number one, select all your lines. Okay? Make sure, and I wrote this down here at the bottom, select all your lines, no fill. Okay, so I'm checking. I have all my lines selected, no fill, and it's just a stroke. Okay, next step, object, path, outline, stroke. I go to object, I go down to path, and I go to outline, stroke. That now converts the lines you drew into shapes, which is going to let me use the live paint bucket in a minute. Now, what I like to do is once I have this all set up, and you want to make sure too that your lines are all touching. So even before you do that step, if you have a piece here, like this is his leg, and it's not touching, you can't fill in this area. I mean, there is a setting to, like, it has a little bit of play with that, but you want to actually be able, you want to have everything blocked off and closed for the paint bucket tool later on. All right, so let me go back and select all this stuff again. So step one again is to select your blank coloring book page. You're going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Then I usually Pathfinder it together to make it into one shape. Pathfinder, Unite. And that takes all your lines and it makes it, it's all one big shape. If you had any fills on here, it would show up as a fill right now, and you'd have a big area filled in, and that means you have to go back, undo, and try to fix that up. All right, now you're ready for live paint. My object's selected. The live paint bucket is in the same toolbox as the shape builder tool. So it's in the same compartment as the shape builder tool. It's called live paint bucket. If you want, you can hit K on your keyboard. So let's say, I have the pen tool right now, and I want to switch over to live paint bucket. I hit K, and I have it. You also are going to want to have your swatches window out, and I do want to tell you a little something about this, setting up your swatches for this project as well. Oops, that was symbols. We don't want to fill this with symbols, although that might be kind of cool. We want swatches. Swatches. So now, whatever color you pick out of here, and you go over that object and you will fill in that area, and the pointy part of the paint bucket tool is where the actual cursor is, so you can fill in Bart. Now one thing you're going to notice is that the yellow that's in here is not the same yellow as Bart, so that's a problem. And if I go with my eyedropper and I try to pick the color off of here, it's filling in all my lines as well, so I end up with this Bart looking electrocuted thing going on here. So what I like to do is I like to set up my swatches a little bit ahead of time. So I'm not going to have anything selected. I'm going to get my eyedropper tool. I'm going to pick the color off Bart's head. This is a swatch. So I'm looking at my swatches window right now. And let me zoom in on this so you can see. And you can take this and actually add it to the swatches down here. And you see I kind of did that already. So eyedropper, you pick a color off your screen. So Bart's shirt color, I could pick it right off the picture if I wanted to. And then you just drag it in here. And now these are set up so that when I go back to my live paint bucket, I can go right in on Bart here. And now I have the red that I picked for Bart red. And I go over here and I click and I'm able to fill that in. And any shape that is completely bounded by the black lines will fill in. This side arrow on the keyboard will allow you to scroll through your swatches. So if you're looking at my swatches window right now, you can see the cursor coming through there, and that's because I'm hitting right and left arrow on my on the keyboard while I'm doing it. So if I want the blue, I just click one over and I got the blue. And you can see how this goes. And this will fill it in nicely, and you'll end up with a beautiful Bart Simpson when you're all done. Okay, so that's kind of the simple lesson for how to do the Bart Simpson drawing and fill all that. Oops, I got his shoe there. And that's how you do it, kids. So enjoy and start thinking about what characters you guys want to do down the road. But please, please, please do not let your projects end up looking like this. All right, have fun.